Hello there. So having 40,000 HGV tests in limbo isn't contributing to our HGV driver shortage then? Well, according to the Remoaners it doesn't. As per usual, please like, subscribe and comment below, and when subscribing, please do press that little bell, but also select the all option, or you won't get any notifications when I publish a new video. Even now, in the face of countless HGV drivers past and present filling social media with their take on the crisis in their trade, we still have Remoaners blindly pointing at Brexit as the cause. And why? Because it's the only thing they can point at. But when they wail, but Brexit, they are totally wrong. In fact, most lorry drivers see Brexit as a way of improving things for them. For a start, anyone tuning into the BBC would think that the vast majority of HGV drivers in the UK came from the EU. But here's a graph straight from data from the Office for National Statistics. The data is purely the number of employed UK HGV drivers and employed EU HGV drivers since the year July 2014 to July 2015 through to the year April 2020 to April 2021. Drivers from the rest of the world only add another 3,000 to 5,000. But as Brexit is always cited as the cause of this, I thought I'd concentrate on UK and EU driver numbers. The orange line at the bottom is EU drivers, the blue line is UK drivers, and the top green line is the total. So on average, UK drivers number over 250,000 and EU drivers about 35,000 to 38,000. And you can see in the last year, numbers of both EU and UK drivers were falling in the UK. The number of EU drivers fell by 11,000 and the number of UK drivers fell more by 13,000. And it's also quite clear that the number of UK drivers has been on the slide since June 2017. We've lost 36,000 UK drivers, and for most of that time the number of EU drivers was static at around 38,000. As you can see by the green line, we've been losing drivers overall since June 2017, most of them UK drivers. How's that anything to do with Brexit? It isn't. And back in 2019, the Road Haulage Association and the British International Freight Association both put the driver shortage back then at around the 50,000 mark. But right now, according to Grant Shapps, the Transport Secretary, we have cancelled 40,000 HGV tests due to COVID. Do you reckon sorting that out would go a long way to helping? But on top of cancelling the tests, we also sent licensing staff home due to COVID, where they're not allowed to process vocational licences. That means HGV licences. Those can only be administered within the office itself. And they've been engaged in industrial action as well. Brilliant. Now, in the run-up to Brexit, we were told that about 3 million EU citizens lived in the UK, but once the applications opened, nearly 6 million opted to apply to stay here. 6 million, and out of that 6 million EU citizens, only about 0.5% were lorry drivers. And those that did leave could have applied to stay with the other 6 million. The truth is that we're in this position because HGV driving in the UK is a stressful and unpleasant job with poor conditions and rubbish wages for the responsibility they carry. So people leave looking for better alternatives elsewhere, and I'll come on to that in a minute. Not only that, COVID struck. And I made a video right back at the start when the whole HGV system was imploding due to a lack of work, with haulage companies going bust left, right and Chelsea. And I said that if we didn't help those companies out, there'd be no drivers around at the critical time we need them. coming out of the pandemic, like right now. Drivers are hanging up their keys and opting to stack shelves. And that job just became easier because there's no lorry drivers left to deliver goods to the shops for the shelf stackers to stack. But it's worse than that. A driver turns up at a depot to collect goods for the supermarket, only to be told they'll have to wait there with no facilities for 2 to 3 hours before their load is ready. In the meantime, I'm told, they have to leave their keys with the depot, so they can't go off on another job elsewhere. Now those extra hours are extra hours worked, but probably unpaid, but not extra hours they drive, so they've then got a full day in the cab as well. It could also lead to lost delivery time. This is not only dangerous and a massive drag on productivity, it's also shabby treatment of a key part of our workforce. Then on top of that, they get onto the motorway only to find idiots from Insulate Britain, aided and abetted by the local plod, holding them up. Then no overnight services at the truck stop, and also any cyclist that comes within a mile of them is soon going to have right of way over them. And what's the PM Boris Johnson going to do about it? Something that throws up other questions. But before I get to that, I just want to say a massive thank you to all my Super Thanks, Patreon and PayPal supporters, as well as those that do buy a mug with my mug on it, links in the descriptions box below. And I generally put up 2 videos a day. Now Boris is sending out 1 million love letters to HGV drivers to tempt them back into the driving seat. But hang on, I've just seen from my graph that we've got less than 300,000 on the road right now. Does that mean we've got nearly 750,000 HGV drivers out there not using their licences? Well, many will be retired, many will be in management, and many will have changed career. Now back in 2016 there was an HGV driver shortage, and it was estimated back then that there was somewhere between 45,000 and 60,000 people with licences that were not driving trucks. A substantial number. But the Mail is reporting today that there are 516,000 HGV licence holders in the UK, and that nearly half of them are not working as drivers. The Road Haulage Association said the total number of people in the UK with HGV licences this summer is 516,000. But the latest Department for Transport data shows 278,700 HGV drivers were employed in 2020, equivalent to 54% of the total, says the report. So 46% of qualified drivers, that's 237,500, aren't employed in the driving game anymore. And if just 10 or 20% of them could be enticed back. Now, as I understand it, HGV drivers these days end up investing their own time and money to get qualified. That means the companies that use them have zero investment in them and can treat them pretty much as they like. And it looks like people have been qualifying in numbers, so pushing wages down. The truth is, we may have had too many HGV drivers, crushing pay and conditions, causing a massive short-term turnover of newly qualified drivers coming in and quickly going once the reality of the job hits home and they find something else. Could it be that the pandemic has shut off the pipeline of new blood that feeds that fast turnover? But they're still leaving at the other end at the same rate, if not faster. And that without the pandemic shutting the licensing system down, we might never have realised this. Now, something that points to a fast turnover being at the heart of this is that there were 40,000 tests cancelled in the last year and a half or so due to the pandemic restrictions. 40,000 is nearly 15% of the total number of those 278,700 drivers. Doesn't that suggest a high churn rate? And then, when looking at the reducing numbers overall over the years, that we're qualifying them fast at their own expense and then watching them walk away even faster when, despite all the time and effort they've invested in themselves, they find the job completely untenable. Everything I see on this crisis points to pay and conditions being right at the heart of everything. But it's thus far been hidden by high throughputs of drivers, and a high churn of drivers is very inefficient. It might produce cheaper drivers for big business, but you have to have a bigger licensing department to run it and more tax to pay for it, and it also wastes the time of people who could be more productive elsewhere. And now we found out how key these drivers are, maybe it's time for a rethink. Or maybe the government thinks some sort of reset is the solution. So what's your opinion on the HGV driver shortage? Please like and comment below.